Okay, you guys, it's a Wednesday edition of What Not to Do in Real Estate Investing 101. So, I've talked a lot about the things you should do because I really want to give people actionable advice that they can move on immediately. But sometimes people don't take my advice. And I don't know everything, right? That's fine. I'm going to try to block this sun here for you guys. I don't know everything, right? That's fine. I don't know everything. But through my experience, I have learned things that I should not do. And I'd like to share some of those with you today because I've done them or I've seen other people do them. So, some of the things when you're just getting started, you don't need an LLC or any of that stuff, right? Just don't do it. Don't waste your time. You're not going to get corporate funding. You're not going to. I've looked at all those YouTube videos. I've talked to some of the gurus. Like I've been through that. It's not worth your time. If you want to get business credit card funding at 0% interest, you can do that. And yes, you will need an LLC, but you'd probably want it to generate a little bit of income. So yes, can you start an LLC and get business funding in the next couple days? Sure. Will it be a lot? No. Will you have to personally guarantee for it? Yes, which means they're going to pull your credit. So you need to have good credit. You need to have good income because yes, they are doing it for the business, but it is still 100% reliant on you as the personal guarantor. There is no such thing as getting corporate business credit cards where you don't have to personally guarantee. You're not Jeff Bezos, so don't waste your time. I have a DUNS number, all that stuff. I did the trade lines with Uline and all that stuff. It didn't help. It didn't do anything. And maybe I did it wrong. Maybe I'm jaded. I don't know. But just telling you my advice. It's just too complicated. It takes too much effort. It takes too much money. It takes too much time. It's not something you should be thinking about when you first get started. Second, when you are actively looking for properties. So let's say you've done all the things that you're supposed to do. You've saved up for a down payment. You have good credit. You have a stable W-2 job, or you've been in your business for 2+ years and have the good solid tax returns to prove it. Quick side note, for business owners, because I've seen this a lot and I've talked to a lot of lenders about it, for business owners, when you are your own business and you think it's really cool to write off all of your expenses. Oh, I got equipment, I got a computer, got a laptop, got employees, got food, got travel. When you write everything off, when you write off all of your expenses, you become unlendable because then the bank looks and sees, oh, this guy only paid $30,000 in taxes last year. So his income is only $30,000. He can't qualify for anything, or she can't qualify for anything. So before this tax season comes up, which is April, and if you're a business, I know some people do it quarterly, but before you write everything off, please go talk to a lender and say, hey, I'm about to do my taxes. Can you give me some advice on how I can be financeable before I submit this? Just wise advice. I've made that mistake where I was, my CPA was like, oh yeah, Brandon, you just want to write everything off, right? And I said, yes, write it all off, save me all the taxes. That delayed me from buying a property for a year. So I learned my lesson. Back to the original point. So you've done everything that you're supposed to do. You have the credit, you have the down payment, you have the income, the verifiable income and all that good stuff, right? So when looking at properties, things that you should not do. Do not, if you're using a real estate agent, even if they're investor friendly, which means they own, not manage, but they own rental properties or Airbnbs or midterm or short term, whatever, they own themselves in that area. And I'm not saying, oh yeah, my buddy is a realtor and he owns stuff 5 states over that he inherited from his grandpa 10 years ago or whatever. No, somebody who's actively investing in that market that you're looking at. That is the only advice you should be taking from. And even then, They are still commissioned salespeople. Even though they technically have a fiduciary responsibility, and if you don't know what fiduciary it is, look it up. But they have a fiduciary responsibility to do what is in your best interest at all times. But they still only get paid when you buy. So, even though they probably have your best interest at heart, there's still a part of them that needs to get paid. So, they may encourage you to buy a property after looking at 50 of them because they just want to get paid. So anyways, so what does that mean? It means you should talk to people who are not financially incentivized for you to buy or not to buy a property. So you can go off market and not use an agent. You can use an agent. Please just be mindful with a grain of salt. They only get paid when you buy or sell. So, take that for what it is. And the other thing that's really important to know is that, how do I say this without sounding like a jerk? Don't get emotionally involved. You are trying to start a business. Don't fall in love with the neighborhood. Don't fall in love with the tenants that are already there. Don't fall in love with the certain charm of or aesthetic or vintage nature of the property. Whatever it is, right? Do not fall in love, because this is a business transaction. And by doing something like that, you are going to fudge your numbers. You are going to say, well, I don't really need 8 or 10% for management. I don't really need, this place is so popular that I don't really need to factor in a 5% vacancy. Maybe it's 3%. Oh, the last owner, the current owner, said, in their disclosures that they spent $100,000 fixing this place up. So I don't really need to worry about CapEx expenses. What they didn't tell you is that they spent $100,000 with them and their buddy Joe, who is a retired handyman, and $50,000 was spent on them having beer money, and the other $50,000 was stuff from Harbor Freight. And yes, that is a jab at Harbor Freight for having inferior quality products. But anyways, so you don't know what they did. You don't know how they did it. You don't know, you know what I mean? Just because somebody replumbed the entire place, if that isn't from a super professional company that's been in the business for at least 5 or 10 years with a, here in Oregon, it's called a CCB, a contractor's something board, license, whatever. If they don't have a license, and if they don't warranty the work, and if that work isn't transferable, and this is a big thing on roofs too, a lot of new homeowners will slap a new roof on there because they think their house will sell better, which is true. But if it's from a non-reputable company with a non-transferable warranty, then, for all intents and purposes, them and their brother could have gone up there and put that roof up, right? We don't know, right? And what scares me the most is that when they don't warranty their work after transfer. So because I'm buying the property, now you don't warranty the roof? Why? You're the one who did the roof. You know exactly how you did it. You know when you did it. You know the material you used. You know everything about that roof. Because I'm buying it, now you don't want to warranty it? Interesting. So anyways, so just a couple things, that you have to look for, really scrutinize the area. This is probably your I could be wrong, but this very well could be your biggest investment of your life. Buying a home, or buying a rental property, or buying a house hack, whatever it is. Scrutinize it every possible way. Then ask your realtor. Then ask your lender. And then ask anybody that you know that is an investor that isn't financially motivated on whether you buy that or not. And just, explain your situation. Hey, this is my first purchase. I don't expect to get a grand slam home run deal. I just need it to make sense. Is this a decent purchase? Am I making a bad purchase? And I think that's the best you can hope for. And I'm trying not to be pessimistic, but that's the best that you can ask for when you first getting started. The likelihood of you getting a home run screaming deal before every other investor in your town, before every other person that has decades of experience, the fact that you found the deal of the century that nobody else found and looked over first is unlikely. So you might just have to settle for a deal that breaks even. You might have to settle for a deal that's negative cash flow, $100 to $200. But the important thing is that if you're going to live into it and it's going to be a house hack, the important thing is, does it lower your monthly housing expense? If the answer is yes, that's a win, right? Like if you're paying $2,500 a month or $2,000 a month to live, and you go house hack a duplex or a fourplex like I suggest, or you even do a house hack with an actual house and rent out the rooms, as long as your monthly housing expense goes down, that's technically a win. So that's what you want to do, right? You don't want to increase your housing expense. That's a no-no. You don't want to buy a property that needs a bunch of work. If you are not a contractor or very handy with a lot of experience working on houses, you do not want to get into a property that has potential. Please, as an investor who's been doing this since I was 25, I'm now 32, and I'm talking with hundreds of other investors from across the country, not just here in Oregon. I've talked to other people too. People do not pay for potential. They just don't. I just got off the phone with a guy telling him I cannot give him $325,000 and I need to be in the twos. And he was just, hey, you've wasted my time. Don't ever call me again. I'm throwing your card away. Click. Okay. But essentially, what he was wanting me to do was he was wanting me to pay for potential. The potential of building out the basement. The potential of cheap landlord special fixing, which is what he's been doing. He's been, over the many years that he's owned the property, he's done a lot of landlord type fixes. And some of them are probably fine. Some of them need to be redone. But the problem is like I told him, I said, hey man, we're maybe being a little conservative here, but we think if we finish out the basement and all these things that you're telling me to do to really improve the value here, it's going to cost us $100,000, conservatively. And he's like, oh, no, that's, it can be done much cheaper. And I said, well, that's true, but we're not going to do the work ourselves. So we're going to have to hire it out. And we're going to want to do good quality work, right? Like, good stuff that's going to last 20 plus years. Anyways, he was very upset, hung up the phone. And that's why you just don't pay for potential. Because maybe I'm not explaining this correctly, but just because I can build a house on a property doesn't mean the house is already built. It means I have to go get the permits. It means I have to do all the due diligence. It means I have to pay for the engineering. It means I have to pay a builder to build the property or do it myself. Any way you look at it, you may have the potential, which is cool. But it still hasn't been done yet. So, for example, I bought a 4-unit building, and I think it has the potential to build another property on it. It has a big chunk of land right next to it that I own. But I didn't qualify that into my thinking when I bought the property. Nor did the seller encourage me to say that the value's in the land. Pro tip, when they say the value's in the land, that deal's not going to work. Because they want you to pay more than going rate for a chunk of land that has not been developed. So just a pro tip, if you ever hear somebody say, oh, well, I want X amount of dollars because the value's in the land. I've heard that over 50 times. I'm certain, over 50 times. And every time that I've looked at that deal and then they've said that, the price they want is always prohibitive to purchasing. It just never pans out. It never makes sense. They want you to be upside down $100,000 for the potential to do a bunch of work to then build a property. It's just never worth it. I have not seen it worth it one time. And again, I'm not a builder, I'm not a developer. Maybe somebody here has more knowledge than I do. But when you hear that, proceed with caution. But back to the point I was trying to make here. When you're looking at deals, just be cautious. If it seems like an amazing deal, you might be missing something. You might be forgetting to include taxes and insurance. You might be forgetting CapEx expenses. You might be forgetting vacancy. You might be forgetting management. I think I self-manage, and I still put that in there because I know at some point in time I will not be the manager. At some point in time, whether it's now or 30 years from now, I'm going to pay somebody to manage that for me. So I want to know what is everything going to cost me. So those are just some tales of caution, some things to think about, and some things to just wholeheartly avoid, and just say, hey, maybe this isn't the deal. And that's okay, you guys. That's okay. There'll always be another deal. So please, if you feel like you are forcing it, if you feel like your agent is pushing you, if you feel like the seller is explaining things away, oh yeah, the electrical work, yeah, that was fine. That was, my brother was an electrician 50 years ago, and he's blind in one eye, but he still got it. Don't worry about it. That electrical, I'd eat my dinner off of that electrical plate, or whatever. I don't even know what you call it anymore. Anyways, the panel. I'd eat my dinner off that panel. Okay, well, I wouldn't recommend it, but so that, just be careful, right? This is a big investment. If you think you're overanalyzing it, you probably are, and that's okay. The only thing that I would tell you not to do is don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. And I know that's easier said than done. I get it. But here's the thing. After you've analyzed it, day in and day out, and talked to different people, agents not involved in the deal, investors not involved in the deal, lenders, you consulted all the calculators, talk to your friends, talk to people you don't know. Eventually, you just need to pull the trigger. And will your numbers be wrong? Yes. Make peace with that. Make peace with knowing that all of your calculations will be wrong. I've done this 4 times, and not one time have I ever been 100% with all of my numbers. Plus, I've done some flips, and even then, your numbers change. Whether you're buying and holding, whether you're flipping, whatever, your numbers will be wrong. It'll usually be more than what you've expected, and that's okay. It's a learning lesson. But I do promise one thing. I'm going to end this on a positive note. I do promise you one thing. The worst deal today will be one of the best deals 20 years from now. So, for all those people who bought right before the big housing crash, 2008, right? Let's say everybody paid premium dollar in 08 or 06, 07, right? And for those people that, what was it, 30, 50% of their home's value evaporated, and they paid top dollar, a lot of people sold and lost. But I just literally, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, I spoke to somebody on the phone who is wanting to sell their property, and they bought it back in 06, 07 They paid and it was a condo, so it didn't even appreciate the way it was supposed to. Condos don't appreciate as much as houses. They bought a condo, top of the market, 06, 07, and she held. She hodled. She diamond-handed all the way until today, which is 2025. So, to give credence to my point, that if you buy a terrible deal, which she did, she bought at the worst point in the market, and then it tanked for years and years and years. It had to recover. She is selling for a profit. Unfortunately for me, she wants full retail value, which I understand, especially holding 20 years. But she held the property the 20 years. 26, 27, it's now 25. She's held it 18 years. And it is a good deal for her now because it's paid off. It cash flowed that whole time. It is now an asset and it is fully recovered. Could she have put that money into Bitcoin and been a multi-billionaire? Yes. But she's still going to make money. It looks like the property should sell for around $400,000 to $425,000. And that's a condo. So, is it the best investment? Maybe not. But if any of you would say, I would not take a paid off property that's worth $400,000 right now, if you said you would not take that, you're a liar. Everybody wants a paid off property worth $400,000. So, to end on a good note, even if you make some egregious mistakes, you can still win if you hold. But the most important point is you have to be able to hold. So if you're negative cash flow $200 or $2,000 a month, that is not sustainable. If you're negative cash flow $1,000 a month, that is probably not sustainable. If you're negative cash flow a couple $100, that's probably fine because the market is forgiving. You wait 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that eventually will become a break-even number for you. And then after another 5 years, then you'll start making profit. The whole time the property is being paid down. So you're not negative cash flow. You're getting tax advantages, you're getting, depreciation on the asset, you are hopefully getting appreciation. If you're buying something that's negative cash flow, for the love of God, in everything that you believe in, whatever it is, or nothing, please make sure you're getting some equity. If you're going to be negative cash flow, please get some equity. If not, you're buying completely on hope. You're hoping the market's going to go up. You're hoping that cash flow will change. And all of those things will happen. But that's not a good deal. No equity and no cash flow, bad deal. Don't do that. Anyways, I could keep going on and on and on. I've mixed some of the things you should do with some of the things you shouldn't do. I've given you some advice. It's okay to analyze things to death. It's fine. You're going to be wrong anyways. But the most important thing is you do need to get into an asset. Property values are only going to continue to grow. They're not going to keep building enough. Interest rates may or may not go down. If they go down, what do you think is going to happen? The same thing that happened during the pandemic. Rates went down. It became more affordable to buy. Prices went up. You know what I mean? So if you don't think that'll happen again, I think you're foolish. If rates come down, there will be more buyers, which is more interest, which sellers will again raise their prices. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Sorry for rambling. I know that's a bunch of random stuff, but I hope that there's a bunch of value in here. And if you get even one nugget that saves you thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, please comment down below and say, thank you, Brandon. You are awesome. Peace.